Lucy woke up with a start once she remembered she was resuming at her boss' office that morning, and she quickly glanced at her bedside clock to make sure she hadn't missed the sound of her alarm. Thankfully she was up early, and it wasn't even 6 yet. She sat up and picked up her phone, which was on top of the bedside drawer. Tom had said the boss loved communicating via texts and emails, so maybe it was best she made it a habit checking her mails now. Her heart skipped a beat when she saw a text message notification from Harry, and she closed her eyes and took in a deep breath to calm her heart, before clicking on it. Please kindly note that Mr. Hanks doesn't like ladies wearing their hair up, and he isn't a fan of glasses either, so dress appropriately. Lucy paused at that point and reread it to be sure her eyes weren't deceiving her. What? This is absolutely ridiculous. Who does he think he is to dictate how I wear my hair or what I use for my eye defect? She asked no one in particular as she stood up from the bed angrily. She remembered she was yet to read the remaining part of the text, so she checked it. Also, he doesn't like being stared at or spoken to directly. Even if you're in the office with him, you have to communicate via texts and emails. Seriously? I'm supposed to work with someone like this? Lucy asked as she threw her phone on the bed angrily. She closed her eyes and drew in a deep breath, before trying to count from 1 to 10. The more she counted, the angrier she became, so she gave up. This is preposterous. Simply because he is my benevolent boss, who pays me well and also gave me an official car and driver, doesn't give him the right to tell me how to wear my hair or whether or not to use glasses. This is preposterous. Lucy hissed angrily as she marched into her bathroom to ease herself. She came out a moment later, still seething in anger as she sat in front of her dressing table. What sort of a weird being was he? How could he make such demands? And what was that about not being able to talk to him or look at him? Was he that ugly? He must be. That was the only thing that could explain it. But his voice hadn't sounded so bad over the phone. Whatever. Lucy muttered and then closed her eyes and took in a deep breath, and let it out while counting from 1 to 10 again. She was not going to let her weird boss ruin a day that was yet to start. When she was done, she opened her eyes and stared at her reflection in the mirror. Okay, I will just assume it's a company dress code. It isn't a big deal. Having come to that decision, she stood up and returned to the bathroom to wash her hair and prepare herself for what she knew was going to be a tasking day. 2 hours later, she stepped out of her apartment dressed in navy blue suit pants, a pink camisole, and white blazers, with a pink stiletto heel and handbag to match. Her green contact lens was in place, and her long curly jet black hair, which she had spent quite some time washing and curling, cascaded over her shoulders. You definitely do look like you're ready for your new office, Tom, who was just heading towards the car, commented from behind her, and grinned when she turned to look at him. Good morning, ma'am, you look good. I might look it, but I certainly don't feel it, Lucy muttered. Good morning, she said dourly as she looked him over. Like yesterday, he had left the top buttons of his shirt undone, and he had rolled up his sleeves to reveal his arms. The scent of his cologne drifted into her nose, and she tried to ignore it as she kept her gaze locked on his face. Seems like you're in a foul mood? Besides, I thought you said you preferred using glasses. Why did you change your mind? Tom asked innocently as he unlocked the car. I wish I did. That. She took in a deep breath to stop herself. I was informed the CEO doesn't like glasses, so I had to make adjustments, Lucy muttered as she got into the car. If it's any consolation, you look even more beautiful without the glasses, Tom assured her as he got into the car. Hey. They both looked out of the car when they heard the breathless feminine voice. They saw one of the girls from the previous morning approaching the car with a smile as she took off her earphone and placed it around her neck. She looked like she had just returned from jogging as her vest and tight was plastered to her sweaty body, and a sports phone strap holder was attached to her upper arm. Hi. Tom said with a surprised smile as he stepped out of the car to talk to her, while Lucy tried to ignore them. Good morning. Hi. I'm Jazz. As in Jasmine, she said, extending a hand to Tom. Good morning. I'm Tom. As in, Tom, Tom said, and she giggled girlishly while Lucy rolled her eyes. I was wondering if she was your girlfriend? Jazz asked, jerking her head in Lucy's direction. Not at all. She is my neighbor and I just happen to be her official driver, Tom explained, making sure his voice was loud enough for Lucy to hear him. Oh. That is cool then. I suppose you have a girlfriend? Jazz asked again. None that I know of. Why? Wanna fill the space? Tom asked with a cocky smile and Jazz giggled. Lucy stepped out of the car. I'm sorry to interrupt your conversation, but I really don't want to be late for work, she said to Tom testily before turning to look at the young lady with a stiff smile. Don't you have to prepare for school? Lucy asked, assuming she was a high schooler or college student because of her tiny stature. No, I don't. I graduated 2 years ago, Jazz said, making Tom chuckle. I shouldn't keep you from your impatient boss lady. Can I have your number? Maybe we can talk? She asked, taking her phone from the strap and handing it to him to dial in his number. By the way, I love your new look. You look very hot, she said, fanning her face dramatically as he typed in the number on her phone. You're far too kind with your words, Tom said with a grin as he returned her phone, happy that Brian's assignment had been accomplished without much effort. All right, handsome, you'll hear from me before the end of the day, she said with a wink and waved at Lucy before jogging away. Lucy, who was sitting in the front seat of the car with him, tried to refrain herself from speaking, but after a few minutes she gave up the struggle. What sort of a person are you? Me? Tom asked, pretending like he had no idea what she wanted to talk about. I'm sure we are just two in the car, Lucy added irritably. It's possible you were speaking to yourself out loud. I noticed you tend to voice your thoughts a lot, Tom said, turning to look at her with a straight face, even though he was feeling very amused. Lucy drew in a deep breath to stop herself from giving a sharp retort. Maybe it was because she had started her day in a bad mood, or maybe it was because the more she saw him flirt with other ladies the more scared she became of the possibility of having contracted an infectious disease from him, but whatever it was, she was feeling very annoyed. Okay. Don't get mad. You look like you're about to blow up. Calm down and tell me what I did wrong, Tom said, sounding reasonable. Are you certain you want the lady at the office or not? Of course I want her. Why? Tom asked her, without turning to look at her. Do you? 'Cause it sure doesn't look like it. The other night you went out on a date with another lady, and just now you were flirting with the sweaty girl, Lucy accused, looking at him squarely. Tom shook his head before asking, is there any law against a single male flirting with an equally single and obviously interested female? What do you think are your chances of getting her if she realizes you hook up with random strangers and flirt with every lady that gives you the slightest attention? Lucy asked with a slightly raised brow. First of all, Lou, I told you before you were an exception. Does doing something once make it your lifestyle? Tom asked incredulously. Well, I suppose that is why first impressions are important. How do I know that was the first time you were offering a stranger a wild night on your bed? Lucy asked, making Tom snort. That hardly counts as a wild night, Tom muttered under his breath. I beg your pardon? Lucy asked, glaring at him. Even though Tom was aware what he wanted to say didn't make much sense, he went ahead, how do I know it was your first time too? Who knows if you go to clubs looking for innocent young men to take you home? Tom asked, ignoring her question. What? What do you mean by that? I'm sure you must have noticed I was a 6. Lucy faltered there, feeling her face heat up in embarrassment. Thankfully the traffic light gave a red signal so he stopped and turned to her. A what? Tom asked innocently, blinking at her. This chapter made its debut appearance via N0V3LB1N. Lucy looked away and squared her shoulders, unwilling to back down. That isn't the point of this discussion. What is? Tom asked as he returned his attention to the road. Lucy drew in a deep breath, I'm saying you shouldn't flirt around while you're interested in another lady. I hope you realize I don't owe her any loyalty until she gives me her heart. I'm interested in her, but I also have my desires and needs to cater for. So until she notices my existence and reciprocates my feelings, I'm afraid I can't stay away from other ladies, Tom said, meeting her gaze briefly until she looked away. I'm not going to help you get a woman when you can't even control your so-called urges, Lucy muttered under her breath. I guess you're forgetting our deal. I could stop this car by the roadside and quit my job, Tom threatened, and turned to flash her a grin when he heard her gasp. Lucy wished she could relax, but she couldn't. So she decided to voice out her major concern. How am I sure I've not been infected with an STI? You should probably get tested, Tom suggested with a smirk. Did you get tested after we? Later after we did it, Lucy asked, and she could tell that her cheeks was very red by now. Luckily his eyes was on the road, so he didn't turn to look at her. Wow. You seem awfully interested in talking about it lately, why? Are you interested in another round of passionate love-making, or you're just asking because you're curious? Lucy didn't miss the note of amusement in his voice. Of course not. Why would I want something like that? Lucy asked, sounding mortified by the very idea that he had even thought she would want a repeat of the experience. Do you really want me to tell you why you would want something like that? Or am I to assume that was a rhetorical question? Tom asked with a small smile. Lucy pressed her lips together and looked outside the window. She gritted her teeth when she heard him chuckle, but didn't bother to look at him. It was too bad that she could only get mad, but couldn't do anything else about her anger. After that they both lapsed into silence until Tom drove into the company's parking lot. Have a nice day at work. I hope the CEO treats you nicely, Tom called out to her as she got down. Thank you, Lucy said stiffly as she shut the door, but hesitated a bit by the door. Hang around today. I'd like to go to the nearest hospital or medical laboratory to get tested when I get the chance, Lucy said before turning to walk away. That reminds me, Miss Perry? Tom called, and she turned to look at him curiously, wondering why he was calling her that all of a sudden. Tom reached into the pigeonhole and got out an envelope. I believe that is yours, he said, extending the envelope to her. His eyes gleamed with amusement as though he was waiting to see her reaction after she sees the content of the envelope. Lucy looked at him with a curious frown. What is that? I believe you'd appreciate it best if you see for yourself, rather than hear it from me, Tom said, giving her a nod so she would take the envelope. Lucy reluctantly reached for it through the window, while Tom watched her with a crooked smile as she cautiously opened the envelope. Lucy felt her face flush a bright red with embarrassment when she saw the red lace panties she had worn that first night. I thought you'd like to get it back, Tom said, and stifled the urge to roar with laughter when she turned around and walked away in quick steps. Harry raised his eyes from the document in front of him and looked at Lucy, who just walked into his office. He won't be coming in today, he said, in response to her unspoken question. While watching her closely, he had to admit that she looked more pretty wearing her hair down and without her glasses. Oh. So what am I to do? Lucy asked, feeling very relieved that she didn't have to face a boss she knew was likely going to be difficult. It wasn't like she wasn't curious to know what he looked like, but she just wasn't ready yet. I already told you, your office changed no doubt, but your responsibilities are the same. You can have your secretary bring you all the work you need to take care of, and if the boss has an assignment for you, I will deliver it to you, Harry assured her. All right. Thank you, sir, Lucy said, turning to leave. Miss Perry? Harry called before she got to the door. Yes? Lucy asked, looking at him curiously. You can't go into his office unless you're sent for, or sent there, Harry said, making Lucy frown. The more they gave her these weird rules, the wearier she became of this CEO. If she didn't know better, she would think the CEO was someone she knew who was avoiding her, but that was ridiculous. What was he so bent on hiding from? She wondered. Noted, sir. By the way, you look really good today. Thank you, Lucy said with an awkward smile before leaving. She didn't want to look good. She didn't even care for any of the compliments she was receiving. All she wanted was to wear her glasses and have her hair out of her face. She didn't want any sort of attention from anyone. She knew she looked good, so hearing them say it wasn't a big deal to her. As she returned to her office, she was like a mini office outside the CEO's office. She checked her drawers to make sure everything was in place and then closed her eyes when her eyes fell on the envelope Tom had handed her. She didn't know whether to be thankful that he had returned it to her or to feel embarrassed. She had left it there when she couldn't find it that morning, believing that she was never going to run into him again. Who would have thought any of this would happen? She took out the pant and smelt it, and gritted her teeth when she perceived the faint scent of soap. He had washed it. Did he hand wash it? She wondered, her face coloring at the thought. She would have to dispose of it since there was no way she could wear it again. She threw it into the trash can and stood up to pick it up immediately. The last thing she needed was for the cleaner, whoever they were, to find her panties in the trash can. That would make them assume all manner of things about her. She took the panties out of the envelope and dipped it inside an inner zip in her handbag before discarding the envelope. Time for today's business, Lucy said out loud, as she picked up her phone and dialed her secretary's number. She instructed her to bring every document she needed to attend to her. And when she was done with the call, her eyes drifted to the CEO's door. She wondered what she would find behind the door if she went into his office now. She quickly shook her head to discard any silly thoughts and focused on arranging her desk instead. By the time she was done with that, her secretary knocked on the door, and she gave her the go-ahead to enter. Although this office was that of a personal assistant, it was undoubtedly bigger and better looking than her previous office. Her secretary looked around with a smile on her face, happy that she had gotten the privilege to glimpse a part of the CEO's office. Here are the documents, the secretary said, with her eyes everywhere else but on Lucy. She couldn't help wondering what Lucy must have done to have received this sort of promotion. Being the CEO's assistant was a very big deal. Thanks. You can leave, Lucy said as she opened the documents in front of her and started reviewing them. She remained in that position for some hours until she heard a knock on her door. You can come in, she said without raising her head. She raised her head the moment the scent of his perfume invaded her nostrils, and naturally, her face colored. Sorry to bother you, Miss Perry, it's lunchtime, Tom said, raising the food pack he was carrying so she could see. You didn't have to worry, she said without meeting his gaze. Tom said nothing as he looked around the office before looking at her desk. Nice office. You seem to have settled in, Tom observed. Lucy was grateful he wasn't bringing up the issues of the panties. I haven't been here for up to a week, so moving to a different office wasn't really difficult, Lucy explained. So have you seen him? What is he like? Tom asked curiously, glancing at the main office door. Thankfully he's not coming to the office today. You won't believe all the outrageous instructions I've been given, Lucy said with a shake of her head. Tom seemed like the only friend she had right now, so she was willing to gossip with him, as long as that removed every awkwardness between them. Really? Like? Tom asked, cocking his head to one side so he could look at her. If you're not in a hurry, you can sit down, Lucy offered as she covered the documents in front of her and reached for the food pack which he was still holding. Sure. Thanks, Tom said as he handed her the food pack, before taking the seat opposite her. Apart from bringing her lunch as he had promised he would be doing, he had wanted to see if she was still feeling embarrassed about the envelope issue, and also to see if she would treat him differently. He was impressed to see that she was acting as nothing had happened. Lucy opened the food, thankful that he had remembered to bring her lunch. She was yet to have breakfast as usual, and even though she knew coffee wasn't good for her, she had taken coffee again. It was one of her guilty pleasures, even though she had been warned it exacerbates her ulcer. This was probably how she had gotten an ulcer, always forgetting to eat and consuming coffee. Thanks for the food, Lucy said with a small smile and reached for a hairband inside her handbag, which she used to wrap her hair in a ponytail. You really don't like leaving your hair down? Why? Tom asked curiously as he watched her. I'm more comfortable this way, Lucy said as she opened the box of chicken and chips. Have you eaten? Lucy asked, surprising them both. Tom smiled, yes. How about you bring your lunch so we eat together next time? Lucy offered. Lunch together? Really? Tom asked with a happy smile which made her heart flutter. She had to admit that he was very good-looking. Lucy cleared her throat, yes. Since you're new here, I'm sure you don't have many friends either apart from the lady you're crushing on, so we can eat together, Lucy said, even though a part of her kept telling her that she was making a mistake. The initial posting of this chapter occurred via N0VEL-BJN. What harm could possibly come from eating with her one-night stand come neighbor come friend come driver? Tom had an amused smile on his face as he watched her eat. Do you like your new office? Sure. I honestly don't care about the office though, since I spend most of my time looking at documents and not at the office, Lucy said, looking around the office with disinterest. Is there a reason you love working so hard? Like maybe you want a big promotion? Tom asked curiously. What promotion could be bigger than this? I should take Mr. Harry's job? Or the CEO's office? Lucy asked with an amused smile. Perhaps you want the position of CEO's wife? Tom asked, making Lucy choke on the chip she had just swallowed. Sorry, Tom said, seeing how his question had startled her. Lucy quickly reached for the bottle of water he had brought with him and gulped down some. She blinked back the tears which had gathered in her eyes before looking at him. How is that a position? Lucy asked in a choked voice, and cleared her throat before repeating the question. You will move up the ladder in the company if you marry the CEO. Has that thought never crossed your mind? Tom asked, keeping his tone light and easy. Sorry to say, but that's a shallow way of thinking. I'm not interested in marriage, and if I was, I wouldn't marry a man just to move up the corporate ladder, Lucy said with a shake of her head. Don't tell me you want me to marry him so that I can get you a position in the company, Lucy asked with eyes narrowed suspiciously, but with a playful smile on her lips. Wow. You must have the superpower of reading minds. Tom exclaimed dramatically, making her giggle. Anyway, I'm sure you'd like to get back to work soon, so I should get out of your hair, Tom said, but before he could stand up the door opened and Harry walked in, carrying a box. He was taken aback when he saw Tom's new look since he had not seen him since the previous day after he went for his makeover. Hello, sir. Tom stood up and greeted with a polite smile. This is your driver? Harry asked, ignoring Tom and turning to look at Lucy. Lucy couldn't help wondering why he was asking, when he had been the one who had introduced Tom to her. Yes, sir. He brought me lunch, Lucy explained, hoping he wasn't going to scold her for letting him into her office. Now I see why you were uncomfortable with him working for you, Harry said, looking at Tom from head to toe with disapproval, and Tom subtly glared at him. Maybe I should speak to the CEO again about changing him on your behalf? He asked, making Lucy wince. Why did he have to bring it up? What if she hadn't told Tom about it the previous evening? Would Harry have exposed her this way? Lucy reasoned with displeasure. Not at all, sir. We have resolved our differences and we are okay. I'd love him to remain my driver, Lucy said, making Tom look at her with a big smile, and he bowed at her politely. If you say so. I will just leave this in Mr. Hank's office, Harry said, handing the box to Tom for him to follow him. Tom dutifully carried the box which he knew contained his disguise outfits as he followed Harry into the office. Once he walked through the door and shut it behind them, Tom dropped the box on the table and punched Harry's arm. Ouch. So you're my boss now, huh? Tom asked, glaring at Harry, who was now laughing merrily at the little drama he had played. I was trying to make it more believable. She wouldn't suspect a thing, Harry said before looking at him with disapproval once again. I can't believe you actually did this. You look like a thug. a handsome thug. You have no idea the number of ladies I've turned down since I had this makeover, Tom said, grateful his office was soundproof, and Lucy couldn't hear them. They just want to sleep with you, not take you home to meet their families, Harry pointed out. At least they want to sleep with me. When was the last time anyone wanted to sleep with you? Tom asked dryly as he opened the box. So what? I should get a makeover so that I can have ladies queuing up for my bed? Harry asked with a straight face, and Tom shot him a glare. You wouldn't dare. You're the face of the company, so you have to always look responsible. Yeah. This feels like my hair, Tom observed as he lifted the wig and beards. That is why it is called human hair. I'm sure even you knows that much, Harry said dryly as he lifted the pack of contact lens in the box. Whatever, I need to step out now before she starts getting curious. Make sure to lock the office with your key while leaving. I'll come in through my private elevator later, Tom said as he carried the box into the mini room in his office, and placed it inside a tiny closet where he usually kept extra clothes for days he overworked and slept at the office. They both walked out together and Harry gave Tom a stern look once they were back to Lucy's office. Make sure you don't cause her any trouble. If she so much as complains about you one more time, I'll do all I can to fire you, he threatened before walking away. Tom bowed to him before looking in Lucy's direction. He noticed that she had finished eating and had cleared her desk. I will be waiting outside, Tom said with a small smile. I'm sorry about what Mr. Harry said, Lucy apologized guiltily. If only she had not reported him to begin with, Harry wouldn't have been so hard on him. It's okay. I should be thanking you for letting me keep my job. By the way, about getting a medical test, I'm not sure you need it, Tom said, feeling he owed her that much since it seemed like she was genuinely worried about it. I don't? Lucy asked hopefully. You don't, Tom said with a nod. Why not? Did you get tested? Lucy asked before he could turn to leave. This chapter made its debut appearance via N0V3LB1N. Tom scratched the back of his head, wondering if he should tell her the truth or not. Why don't we talk about it when you're done with work? We could spend the evening at your place or mine talking and seeing a movie, Tom suggested, and Lucy looked at him for a while before nodding her head. At least that was much better than leaving the house. Later then, she said with a smile, and returned her attention to what she was doing as he walked away. Tom sighed once he shut the door behind him. He didn't make any move to walk away, but rather stood there staring at the door like he could see through it. He wished he had been able to confide in either Harry or Brian about what had happened between them that night. Unfortunately, he couldn't. It was Lucy's private business, and he wasn't sure he wanted them to know what had transpired between them. That meant he had to handle this himself. Perhaps telling her nothing had happened between them would change some of her opinions about him. Brian's eyes felt really heavy when he opened them and saw that it was midday already. He had binge-read Sonia's novel until past 6 a.m., and now he wanted nothing more than to sleep all day. He reluctantly stood up from the bed, remembering that he was going to call the publishers of Sonia's novels. After cleaning up, he picked up his phone and dialed the publisher's number which was written on the novel. He didn't have to wait for too long, as the call connected on the 6th ring. Hello. Mason Publishing Agency, what may we do for you? A lovely feminine voice asked. My name is Jeff Banks and I'm a die-hard fan of Miss Sonia Smith. I noticed your company always publishes her books. Is there a way I could get her editor's number from you? I'd love to send them a gift, Brian lied, using the names of the last character he had played. Hold on for a moment, the lady said, and placed the call on hold to call her boss. Brian waited for what seemed like a long time before the call connected again. I'm only permitted to give you Mr. Connor's email address. You can contact him through his email, the lady said, and waited for Brian to accept or decline the offer. Sure, that would do. Thank you. She read out, and Brian quickly looked for a pen. He asked her to spell it out just so he was sure he was getting the right thing, and when she was done, Brian had a grin on his face. "Thank you so very much for your assistance. I will be sure to refer my writer friends to your company," Brian said before hanging up. He quickly logged on to his email account and typed in a message, "Hello Mr. Connor. This is Brian Hanks, and I would love to speak with you over the phone. Please do not tell Sonia about this. Kindly contact me as soon as you receive the text." He added his phone number to the text before sending it. Having accomplished his task for the day, he felt lighthearted, knowing that he would soon find out Sonia's location. He placed a call to order food and then proceeded to pick up Sonia's novel to continue from where he stopped. He often found himself roaring with laughter or feeling very sad as he read. He was very impressed with her writing style and was glad his fake fiancé was quite a talented writer. He knew without a doubt that many people would purchase her books simply to check her out because she was his fiancée, and he was both glad and relieved to know that they would all be impressed as he was. This chapter's initial release occurred on the N0V3 Elbin site. He glanced at his phone when it started ringing and winced when he noticed it was a call from his closest friend, Matt, who was also an actor. "Hey?" he asked with false cheerfulness. "Why do I get the feeling that you're not excited to hear from me?" Matt asked with a chuckle. "Because I'm not. If you're calling to make fun of me regarding the engagement, don't," Brian warned. "There is nothing to talk about. I have no doubt that you're not really engaged to her, although I wonder why you did what you did," Matt said. "Why are you so sure?" Brian asked, and Matt chuckled. "Because I've known you for more than 10 years, and you can never keep such a relationship a secret from me, even if it means calling me just to gloat about how you found the love of your life," Matt said, making Brian grin since that was the truth. He explained the situation to Matt, and Matt's body shook with the force of his laughter. "I like her. She is totally my type," Matt said with a grin. "She is?" "Yeah. I could get her off your hands if you want me to," Matt offered. "You're sure about that?" Brian asked hopefully. "Definitely. Let's just hope you don't fall in love with her after I've taken her off your hands," Matt said with a grin, imagining what it would be like for himself and Brian to be involved in a love triangle. "Never. I don't do crazy ladies," Brian said confidently. "Never say never. Just let me know once you find her, and I will do what I can." "All right, I will let you know once I do," Brian said, glad that he had been able to confide in his closest friend. All he wanted was a way to break off this false engagement. It would be best for him if Matt got involved with her. That way he could play the victim and say she had cheated with his friend or had dumped him for his friend. Then no one would blame him for going back to his playboy lifestyle. Brian had a grin on his face as he poured himself a glass of wine to celebrate his beautiful plan. Meanwhile, Sonia lay on her bed, unaware of Brian's plan, as she tried to come up with her own plans. All she was thinking about was Brian and how to make her story about them more fun. Merely calling him wasn't going to do what she wanted, and it definitely wasn't going to bring them closer since he would keep asking her for the same thing. She needed a new strategy to get his attention. She thought about his family. His mother had seemed nice. She wished she knew more about his siblings than what was written on the internet about them. She quickly sat up when something suddenly occurred to her, and her mouth rounded in surprise. How had she not connected the dots the whole time? She recalled reading something about Brian Hanks' brother being the CEO of iGlobal and his sister being a lawyer. That meant his brother was now Lucy's direct boss. How had she missed such an important point? A smile slowly spread across her face. Her story was going to become even more interesting now. She quickly jotted down her thoughts and made a mental note to give Lucy a call once she was done formulating the plan she had in her head. The smile remained on her face as she wrote down everything. She knew she was crazy, no doubt, and that her plan was outrageous, but she also knew if she wanted a beautiful result for both her relationship with Brian as well as her novel, then she needed to follow her instincts and do this. Once she was done writing, she packed her hair and stood up to arrange her room and bags. She was going on a trip to pay her fiancé a not-so-surprising visit.